Okay, so now in this video, let's do some buying examples, right? So let's do some basically gauging the momentum to fade out the sellers to understand when the buys will resume. Okay, so let's take a look at this carefully and see, okay, how can we apply this on the buyer side? So to do the buyer side, we must first see when the sellers end, and we can see from here the sellers were in a downtrend, right here, right? As they were into a downtrend with lower lows, lower highs, and every step of the way they kept holding. Let me use this line. They kept holding, then they went lower, held there, and then they came back. So it's like, okay, that's the low point, and that's the circle. That's the circle, that's the guy who started it all. So even if you break above, doesn't mean it's a buyer yet, but once he challenges and breaks through that, then yeah, now that's officially a buyer. So we're going to bring this higher. We're going to bring this higher and be like, okay, that's where the breach happened, and the guy who started it all is this fellow's down here. Okay? These are the guys who started this whole momentum. Okay, now that he's getting all the way up to here, notice no seller comes in. It's just the buyer pausing, buyer going up. Now, as he gets up to here, here's where the sellers come in, and we want to start noticing the seller's rubber band man, right? So the seller's coming in, he rests 80%. Okay, he's already starting slow, but then he picks up momentum. Before he had red, green, red, but now he got three reds. But on the third one, look at that wick. He's starting to get some pressure coming in. It's like, okay, so he's selling, but then he's got pressure. And it looks like, what is that, 100% retracement? Okay, let's understand this in a seller's perspective, right? We do that miniature, whose territory is he in, buyers or sellers? So if we held here and then he break through the spot, that's his breakout area. That's the area where he broke through. And who's responsible for that sell? This fella. As long as we don't go above him, he's in the seller's territory. So he went below and he retraced quite a bit. Then he goes below again, no lower low, but he retraces 50%. Then he goes bit again, no lower low. He retraces a little bit more. Then he goes bit more and he gets a snap back completely. He's like, okay, this guy's dead. He's completely out of the game because he keeps getting snapped back. Now notice up until this point, it's very difficult to gauge like when is it the right moment for us to understand that can he still have power. It's until he is still in seller's territory. But notice once he breaches onto the other side of the seller's territory, it's game on, baby. It's game on. Because now we're going with the original buy status, right? The big buyer here. We're going with the miniature, the sellers have faded out and the buyers are back. Okay, so we're resuming the upward market. Now, there is a bit of caution there because of this big knockdown. But remember, this big knockdown, whose territory are we in? Buyer's territory. And if this is the zone where they breached, who's responsible? This guy. Would you know where to put your stop losses? Okay? Practice this again and again and again until you get very, very good at this. Okay? This can also help you in terms of how long you need to hold the trade for. Go with the buyer rubber band man and be like, okay, he's still got momentum, he's still got power, let's keep going. Okay? And we'll get into more details of stuff like that later. But we're going to practice this over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? Let's go on to the next example of the buyer. Okay? We're going to keep it in the same video. So here comes the buyers again. They breached through this entire area because they never went higher high this whole time until they finally broke it. So when they broke it, that's the breach when they made a higher high. Who's responsible? Like we said, it's this guy. Now we're looking at it in a larger scale. In a larger scale. We're not looking at that little teeny weeny one. We're looking at it in a larger scale because this is where it came from. Okay? So, big move up. We're starting to get sellers coming in because the buyers are fading and here comes the sellers. As long as we know this is buyer's territory, the market is oblivious that it's buyer's territory. Everyone is looking at it as a sell. That's fine. That's opportunity for you. Okay? With all due respect to all those people who are selling, that's not our concern. We have to focus on what we need to do, right? So as the sellers keep coming in, here's the pullback to it. Okay, 60% pullback. We're like, already weak. Then he pushes more. He gets a little bit further, but he pulls back 70, 80%. We're like, oh, it looks like he's about to die. He's not dead yet. He's about to die. Okay? Then he pushes this much. We're like, okay, he's not dying at all. This guy has just picked up some sort of steroids or something. Okay? He's got power. Let's do the miniature sell zone. Okay? Here's the breach. Who's responsible for this mess? This fella. Okay? Now, as we get the markets lower and lower and lower, he comes down to here, snaps back 30%, 40%, comes down again, no lower lows, snaps up. Now notice we're in this zone now. Seller's territory still. But buyers are coming in hot. Okay, now we got a little dilemma here. Okay, this we're going to go into next week, which is basically going to be called money spots. These are the money spots where people are confused. Is it a buy or is it a sell? If you can solve that confusion, the money is in your pocket. Because that's where the blast happens. Okay, we'll go into money spot next week. A little piece by piece, right? Piece by piece. I can already feel you guys are raring to go. You're getting momentum. That's good. That's good. And I want you guys to let me know in the comments below of how are you doing in this whole process. Go and try them out. And then you have a whole week to practice this. And let me know in the comments below, like, how are you doing? Okay, I'll have my team, my moderators, I'll come out there myself and I'll look into your questions and answer them. But I want to see your progress. Tell me how you're doing. Are you able to see the changes now? Are you able to see the light at the end of the tunnel? Is your trading turning around? Okay, so when we see this area, they're like, okay, I get it that we made a higher high, support equals resistance is broken, it's the buyer's area. No, it's not. We're still in the seller's market, mini seller's market, overall buyer's market. Okay? Very confusing state for many people because at this stage, what happens? It can smack down and make new lower lows. So at this stage, he holds grounds and then he breaches higher. Now the breach happens here, and who's responsible? This fella. He's responsible. As long as we're above this guy, we are now turning into the buyer's market. Now, remember this other guy? This miniature sell zone? We're up challenging him now. Now that we're up challenging him and we've turned into a buyer's area, this fading is very critical to us. It's very, very critical to us. In this fade, we will watch the sellers like a hawk. Every time they try for sells and every time they rest, every time they get knocked back, it's telling you more and more signs of prepare, prepare, prepare. Okay? The stop losses can't be just below this line. Remember, who started it all? This guy. Your stop losses has to be down here. Okay? So don't underestimate the power of the guy who started it because the markets can come back to that guy. Okay? If you remember in the previous videos, every time it comes, knocks back down, that moment where he started it last time, it's just like he got that steroid again. Remember that was happening in the last video? He just keeps getting that momentum back, like right here. Imagine this guy is running really hard over here, but when he gets smacked down, he gets really hard again. It's like, whoa, that same, I think that dealer is just standing right there with the steroids, right? Like, he's like, come on, boy. You know, if you ever need me, come back here. So it's like that, right? So you can actually sense it like that. Now, again, this can be very similar to some of you guys' background knowledge of whether supply and demand or support resistance or buyers and sellers or whatever it may be. But simplify it in your mind. Simplify it in how you're going to see it. Okay? So, in this particular case, your buys have to activate in here. As you see, the sell coming in, retracement 50%. Sell comes in, no lower low, retracement 115%, 200%. That's the retracement. Very big right there. All of this above this purple line, all of this challenging this guy, all of this in a buyer's zone, all of this in an overall buyer's zone. It doesn't get any better. And as he tries to make new lower lows, and he starts to get eaten up, it's like game on. It's game time. And then you execute your buy trades in here. Okay? All right, so on to the next example for some more buy examples. So we did some sells, let's do some more buys.